She's ready. She was born ready. Here we go. We're live.
The
Off
account?
we go. We're live. Let's
Are we
do
live?
it.
All righty. Before we actually start recording the podcast, everyone on Facebook, and I know we have a number of people from Rizeup Australia, I would like to introduce you all to the lovely Nicolle Edwards from Rizeup Australia, who will be our guest today on 100 Not Out. Thanks for joining us, Nicolle.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's great.
And Damo, before we hit record, I cannot stand you. I never enjoyed doing 100 Not Out. This is the worst half an hour of my week, and I want everyone to know that before I hit record.
So same, and everything I say is false. Fake. It's fake news.
We don't like each other.
Yeah.
This is all a ruse.
Can't stand you. Like Jason can't stand you. Yeah, I got you.
All right, but before we hit record, folks, we think today's episode is a keeper. It's one for the vault. And at times like this, we think it's probably one of the more important episodes we've probably ever recorded. So get ready, get your questions ready. By all means, get ready to be active in the comments. We will do our best to answer them live on the episode. And if we run out of time, we'll hang around once we've finished recording and answer them too. Yep. All right. Okay. In the interests of getting this recorded, in 3, 2, and 1. Welcome to 100 Not Out, a weekly show dedicated to helping you master the art of aging well. Marcus Pearce here with you, and as always, I am so enamored, excited, humbled, I'm just feeling so bright to introduce you to the co-founder of 100 Not Out, Australia's premier wellness expert, my brother from another mother, the great Dr. Damien Christoph. Hello, legend.
Hello, legend. It's great to be back with you again for another episode, another round. You in the blue corner, me in the red corner, and Nicolle, as a very special guest, is our adjudicator, our judge. No, we don't fisticuff. We're best mates. We are best mates, and I love it. It's always great to share time with you each week. MP, tell us about what's going on today.
Well, lately, Damo, we've been interviewing guests and bringing up topics that we probably think haven't got enough airplay in the mainstream media. Recently, we spoke to our dear friend Shona in New Zealand about the power of friendship and how a lot of people are really feeling the effects of not being able to connect with their friends at the moment. We've spoken about mental unhealth and how people have been pretending to feel okay when they're anything but okay, and we've been talking about making it okay to not be okay at the moment. And we've also mentioned in passing, and today we're going to dedicate this episode to domestic violence. And it's an issue that doesn't get enough coverage in the media at the moment. And I had the great pleasure of meeting Nicolle Edwards through a mutual friend of ours, Jason Witten and Shay Witten, earlier in the year. And Nicolle is the founder of Rizeup Australia. And I think we both share this interest in bringing this message to the world, because if I give you the stats, you'll realise why this may be one of the most important episodes we've ever recorded. 1 domestic violence incident takes place every 2 minutes in Australia. 1 in 3 women have experienced physical or sexual violence by someone known to them. Sexual assault and domestic violence are the most common crimes committed in Australia. And I think we need a voice in Australia to really be someone that is not necessarily connected to the issue by way of physical experience, because our guest today is not someone that has experienced domestic violence in her own family. This is someone who is here from the outside looking in, helping those on the inside going through the harshest, almost most unimaginable of circumstances. And it gives us great pleasure to have Nicolle Edwards, the founder of Rizeup Australia, joining us on 100 Not Out today. Nicolle, thanks so much for joining us.
You're so welcome. It's beautiful to be here, and it was fantastic to meet you earlier in the year, Marcus. And what was so great was just to really, you were picking up what I was putting down. And, I love that, because that's every opportunity that I get to get out there and advocate and speak about what's happening and shine the light on the beast. It's really, really powerful. So really grateful for the opportunity.
Nicolle, I want to ask you before, I know Damien feels very strongly about this topic. I want to ask the first question, then I'll pretty much give the whole episode to Damo, because you and I have spoken a number of times. But you have helped, you're TEDx famous. You are all over the internet. Your message is getting out there in the most powerful ways, which is wonderful. You've helped over 1,000 women and families relocate and restart their lives. I suppose the only real question I want to ask on behalf of the audience is, how do you do this, and how specifically does Rizeup Australia help women? Because it's such a overwhelming topic. Can you share with people how you do it? Because it's quite empowering.
Do you know what? And great question. And the first thing is that I don't do it. My team does it, so I am surrounded by the most incredible human beings. And I think that's the best part of my day every day. We have 546 volunteers. And, I feel that it's such, I feel like it's such an incredible opportunity to come together with like-minded people. We've got doctors and CEOs and painters and stay-at-home mums and stay-at-home dads and, all sorts of people from across the continuum of our society, and joining as one to step into the space of changing the ending for these really vulnerable families. And so we are a bit of a logistics beast, I would say. There's a lot that goes into it. We look like graceful swans, but I can tell you behind the scenes, everyone's working crazily. It'll be our 6th birthday in September. And, we've helped our 1,077 families. So it's incredible. And I think when we say 1,077 families, think about, that's 1,077 dining tables. It's 1,077, mums or dads that we've helped, and then children and little boys, little girls, plus. We've helped animals. It's nuts. It's diverse. So it's incredible. And honestly, I'm only as good as my team. And fortunately, I have the most incredible team that believes in me. Marcus believes in me and what we're doing.
Well, I think it's beyond belief. I mean, because clearly they will believe in your story, because your story is unbelievably incredible. But you're an incredible person to have a drive to be able to do something that's as big as this, and a vision to go way outside your own comfort zone from your own family to go and help thousands of other families is just... It's next level, Nicolle. It's absolutely next level. So I'm grateful for all of those volunteers that actually help you out, and I'm grateful for your team members that work closely with you, that they do back you, because as Marcus was reading out those statistics earlier on, or quoting those statistics, I got tingles on my arms, and I was overcome with emotion. And I was watching Jody Basil, who's a great friend of ours from 100 Not Out, just sharing this to dozens and dozens of people, just get on this call. So I know that just through the people that we know, your message will impact tens of thousands of people. So thank you for doing what you do. If we don't get a chance to say thank you, thank you before we even talk about everything. So can you tell us, Nicolle, I mean, you had an experience a bit over 6 years ago that set you on this path. Are you able to share with us what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was through a friend of a friend that I'd heard news about a woman who had arrived at the Gold Coast Hospital, and she had her baby and she had her 3 other children. And essentially she had arrived at the hospital with nothing but a small bag and her children in tow. And it sort of landed in my lap, Nicolle, what can, have you got anything that we can, help this family? And, with the powers of social media, just putting it out, amongst my friends and family, and, what, have you got this, and what have you got, blah, blah, blah. And by the first week, we had all but housed her. But the tragedy that lay behind this lady's story is that she had actually jumped on a train in Perth in WA, crossed our beautiful land, our lucky country, if you like, and with her baby, her 3 children, and her backpack. And essentially she was fleeing from a violent perpetrator, the perpetrator who was meant to love her and keep them safe. But what was happening was that this perpetrator was perpetrating unbelievable amounts of violence against this little small family. And all she could really do was, so that she didn't alert him of any of her movements or what she was planning, she just took a small backpack and said she was taking those children to lunch. And, in a last resort, she jumped on a train and crossed our massive, beautiful country to get to safety. And that was really overwhelming. You touched on before, this is, my little family. We came out from from South Africa when I was 10. It's my mom and my dad, my brother and myself. And my dad is just a legend. And, I think back in the day, so I was 10. What am I, 46? So back in the day, I think my dad he came out on a visitor visa, $25,000 in the account, and 2 small children. My brother was 13 and myself, and just packed the family up and came. Wow. My dad had spent 10 years in the war, and my brother was due to be conscripted at 15, and he was 13, and it was just not the life that my dad, my mum wanted for their family. And so mum and dad are still together. And I feel, I'm married to the most incredible man, and I feel that everyone deserves to live a life of safety and respect and to have a great life. There are so many challenges that life throws at us, and everyone deserves to live their best life. And I remember so distinctly that my mum had said to me back in the day when I started heading and down this journey, my mum had said to me, Nicolle, we have tried our whole life to protect you from this side of life, and here you are diving headlong into it. And, for me, it was really, that's the reason why I feel probably so passionate about the work that I do. And I've got, I feel it's my dharma, I guess. I don't know if, I'm an activist against injustice, and, always have been that person that has sort of spoken out, and I'm that, annoying person. And so I think, it's just something that I'm very, very passionate about, injustice, as we were talking before, Damo, and domestic and family violence is one of the greatest human rights violation that our world currently faces. So, if it takes me sort of getting out there and advocating and trying to get a bit of a movement happening through this practical component around what we're doing, I'm happy. And that's why we sort of started Rizeup. It was once I had learned about this lady's story, and then I started to learn a bit more, and I started to speak to different people. And because you can't just pick up the phone, right? You can't pick up the phone and ring a refuge, or it's all very hidden. And so for me, just slowly, and now I've been doing this work for, about 9 years altogether now. And I can't unknow what I now know. And my husband feels the same. We closed our business down, and, we've done a few things over the years, and this is it. We're done. So, sometimes I wake up and think, what? Whose idea was it to run a not-for-profit? But, I feel if we can get to the end of our lives and know that we've created some safe outcomes, and we've been able to help families press that restart button, and we've walked alongside them, what, that's okay. It's okay.
Well done. Well done. Nicolle, I'd love to ask.
Was there an echo?
There is a little bit. Maybe it's coming back through Nicolle's computer. Maybe.
Maybe. Oh, no, I think we're okay.
Yeah, we're good now.
Nicolle, we call Australia the lucky country. And I say to people at the moment, honestly, I'm very grateful to be living in a country like Australia at a time like this. I'm glad I'm not living in a country that, I'm glad I'm absolutely thrilled and grateful. But when I, read the stats at the beginning, and I look at more stats that I have here, 1 incidents every 2 minutes, 71 women died from domestic violence in 2016. Intimate partner violence is the leading cause of death, disability, and ill health in women aged 15 to 44. I mean, I'm reeling these off like it's understated. They're absolutely, debacle is not even the right word. Disastrous doesn't even cover it. Like, how does Australia, and I know it's not Australia only, but how does Australia, the lucky country, have such terrible, terrible numbers? This is real human beings. How does this happen?
Yeah. So, and one of the other statistics which always stops me in my tracks is that 3 women in Australia are admitted to hospital with a traumatic brain injury every week. Massive.
Right. So massive. we're losing 1.5 women per week. They're dead. They're dead from domestic violence. I mean, I was doing the White Ribbon certification before White Ribbon closed down, and obviously now White Ribbon's back up again, but I just haven't got back into it. So I was becoming more and more aware of this domestic violence issue, which was blowing my mind. I couldn't get my head around it. But these are 2016 statistics, and things have changed. Like, we're 4 years down the track. We're now, like, I'm in Victoria, and so we seem to be the only state that's in this pandemic at the moment. I can imagine that there's a lot more of this stuff going on. Are these stats still the same, or are they worse now?
Do you know, the thing is when we're looking at statistics, and people often say they cannot be right, those statistics cannot be right, you're damn straight they're not right. They're way worse, because there's so many people who aren't reporting, right? So what we are seeing is a great number of people who are now reaching out, and it's due to the fact that we now have an incredible movement of community advocates, and that's my goal, is to really generate this movement. And I'm hoping by the end of today's podcast, we might have encouraged a few more community advocates to step into the space. And when I'm talking about being a community advocate, it's really around finding comfort, to lean into the discomfort, right? That's such a social worker thing, isn't it? Find comfort in the discomfort. And but to be able to lean in and look at it with both eyes wide open, be prepared to feel a little bit uncomfortable with the subject matter. Think about why we live in this great land, Marcus. Like, I'll come back to your question. But in terms of what is it, are we comfortable leaning in and holding our friends and family accountable for their attitudes and behaviour? Are we understanding that one of the key drivers to violence against women is gender inequality? Are we then understanding that we need to lean in and ask what's so funny about that sexist joke in a really non-threatening and respectful way? I find that it's really important that we are able to sort of find a bit of comfort in the fact that it takes a lot of courage to challenge some of these things, right? And what's happening in a conversation, and not a lot of people feel comfortable with that, because no one wants to have that confrontation, right? But the biggest thing is, we all, as responsible Australians, we need to bring an end and challenge the status quo around domestic and family violence, because there are so many things out of our control. We can't control perpetrators. We can't control the law. We can't control what happens in the courts. We can't control, there's so many things, right? What we can all do is to control how we respond and how we react. And that is where we will start seeing a massive shift in the landscape of domestic and family violence. Alrighty, so that's, we need to lean in on our friends and family and start being really aware of it. Marcus, to answer your question, so we live in this incredible country, and I think this is why, Gareth and I, we're super passionate about it. Coming from South Africa. My husband's from South Africa, Damo.
Wow.
And so
there's more of you guys. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, we're everywhere.
How does that happen? No, I'm joking. I've got heaps of mates in the South Africa. It's great. I love it. Great sense of humour. I love it.
Yeah. So, I think, and we just happened to meet over here, just, fortuitously, as my dad would say. He likes to have one from the son-in-law from the old country. And, but I think Gareth and I, we feel so super strongly around the fact that we both have lived in South Africa. It's, there's lots of crime, third world, there's devastating situations over there. We get it. We know it. Okay, coming over here where there's welfare, we have a beautiful climate, it's a beautiful environment, all of these things, it should not be happening here. There's no excuses. There's absolutely no excuses for violence against the most vulnerable in our community. And I think the biggest thing that drives me as well is that, we're both from South Africa, but we need to focus on right here, what's happening right in our backyard, because there is not enough of that happening, right? More often than not, we're seeing what's happening in third world countries around the world, and it's really wonderful to support that. Don't get me wrong. I'm just super passionate around supporting our own. And if more people understood what was happening in our own backyards, I think people would be blown away by the levels of crime, the levels of poverty, what's happening to these children who are presenting at refuge. Their academic averages well below their age and what they should be. They're presenting with post-traumatic stress on par with people coming back from active warfare. So, we don't have 30 years to learn to put on a seatbelt, right? I think I was saying this to you, Marcus. We now, don't we all, we jump into the car and we put a seatbelt on. We don't even think about it.
Yeah.
That's it, yeah.
That's taken 30 years. Like we're all now, click, clack, clack, all of that. And whereas what we do know about domestic and family violence is that the violence to the brain through trauma, all right, is significantly damaging the development of these little people, severely damaging the victim survivors. And what's happening with their little brains is they are living in a state of hypervigilance. They aren't able to connect with their friends and family at school. They can't keep up. There's high levels of absenteeism. It's just devastating. And what we know about trauma in the brain, I think you guys have probably, you've heard of intergenerational trauma. Have you heard of all of, that's common language. And we know about that through, from what's happening to our Indigenous friends who have been exposed to the stolen generation and everything. So we know what happens to trauma through the brain. And what we're seeing is that this trauma is impacting generations, up to 4 generations down the track. So these little children, their children's children will be exhibiting trauma behaviours because it impacts the cells and the DNA.
Nicolle, Marcus is about to ask a question, but I wanted to get in just quickly, just to backstep just a little bit there. So with that, the trauma you're talking about, are we talking the emotional trauma or the physical trauma?
Both. It's both, okay. But it's, yes.
Yeah. I just want to make that point because all stress is the same, whether it be chemical stress, emotional stress, or physical stress. It's all the same on the body. So this will reprogram the neurons in the brain. You could actually say it alters the DNA because that's how it's going to, present later down the track.
Absolutely.
But this starts, like you said, with seatbelts. So we teach our children behaviours. So my dad, bless him, used to say lots of sexist jokes, and we'd laugh. And then it became racist jokes and all this sort of stuff. And it was always just casual racism or casual sexism or casual whatever. But that kind of pokes fun at whoever is in the joke, whether that be a culture or whether it be a gender or whether it be anything else. And so culturally, I also told lots of jokes as I grew up, before I really understood the whole idea of this kind of casualness around racism or casualness around sexism. And it has to stop from when the child is born, because the moment we make it okay to say a joke and then laugh about it is the moment that we make it okay to swear at your partner or to be violent towards your partner or to do whatever else towards your friends or family without even knowing that you were doing something wrong. And I was accused once of being racist because I laughed at somebody's, racial quip, which wasn't, pointy or sharp or anything else. It was just that because I had a little giggle at the time, I was insensitive to the casualness of that. But that kind of, in that person's eyes, made that offensive, but it was okay to me based on my experiences. So going back to your point, is this has to start when you're teaching your kids about seatbelts. There's no space for casual racism, sexism, or discrimination. Like any kind of discrimination will cause intergenerational damage. And I think you make an amazing point there, Nicolle. Thank you.
Yeah, that's all right. I think it's we all play a part, don't we? We all play a part. If we want to, my ultimate goal, Damo, is for us to all live in a trauma-informed society. I love that work that is done in that space around being trauma-informed. And as an organisation, that's where we work, right? So we work in a space where 82% of our volunteers are actually coming with some kind of lived experience of trauma. So whether that might be, so when we're talking about trauma to people who are listening, it's not necessarily domestic and family violence. Trauma could be post-traumatic stress. It could be from a car accident. You might have experienced trauma from a terrible birth. It could be lived childhood sexual abuse. It's a continuum of different things, right? And the trauma impacts the brain. So when we're talking about having and living in a trauma-informed society, and I think it's such a useful thing because it comes back to our core values, right, which is about being respectful to one another and to have really nice, kind language and to look at everything through a lens of compassion, kindness, understanding, and recognizing that there might be trauma in the space. So I think in all of our journeys, and we've worked in different places, and you've worked, I can say for myself, we've worked with some really challenging personalities. And now, in my 46 years now, I sort of look at that now that I'm doing a lot of work around the trauma, you can start to identify that what we're looking at and sometimes dealing with is actually trauma behaviors. So there's so much on the net. So I really encourage people to lean into that and instead of being really judgmental and going, oh, there's disorders or there's things like that. We need to start reframing the language that we're using, and we start saying it's trauma responses, because therefore we're not being dismissive. We're actually just acknowledging the possibility that there's trauma in the space, but by no means, and this is what I say all the time, it's not an excuse for bad behavior, right? So trauma, whatever, it's not an excuse for bad behavior. So everyone can be involved on both sides there. You got me on a rant.
Oh, this is the best. This is the best.
I love it. Rant.
There's a lot here. You mentioned the net and getting on the net. I want to mention a couple of things before I ask my question, which is about the here and now. When I first heard you speak live, Nicolle, you mentioned a campaign you have going called Change 5,000, which is essentially help 5,000 women. Now, I think from memory, it's got to hear it's $2 a week. And when I don't know if it's just because I'm budget conscious or not, but with 4 kids, I feel like I'm constantly budget conscious. And I'm like, well, everyone in our family is going to help Nicolle and Rizeup change 5,000. We've got 6 of the 5,000. So we just immediately, when I heard this, I told the kids, said we're helping people live happy lives. It's $2 a week. Yeah. They're all involved in it. And I want people to go to rizeup.com.au. And without calling you out on it, if you can't contribute $2 a week to helping another human being, there's something wrong with you. It's like have a smaller coffee instead of a big one. That's all it is. I only one of them a week. Yeah, exactly.
Don't have almond milk. That's it.
Don't.
That's it.
Don't have hemp milk, soy milk, skim milk, any alternate milk. Just go on cow's milk.
Just have a normal latte and you've saved yourself at least $2 a week. Done.
Just have an espresso and don't have any milk in it, full stop.
The Change 5,000, I feel this is something, it's an initiative that we've just recently launched, and it's essentially, the goal is for us to be sustainable, for Rizeup to expand and even continue the work that we're doing. We just need to reach 5,000 people, each donating $2 a week. Okay, so that will give us sustainability. At the moment, out of Southeast Queensland alone, we're operating out of 33 storage containers. Nutso. So we don't, we look like this big shiny mobile, but we're actually not at all. We're, we're just this little unfunded organisation. And my passion actually is the fact that I do feel quite passionate about the funding space, because I feel like there are incredible frontline services out there that are doing it really tough. So, any available money, I'm always for that. I feel like any available money that the government can put their hands on, they really need to be putting it to these frontline services, all right? So we're not considered a frontline service because we don't actually work directly with the women and the children and the men that we're working with, all right? So it's good old-fashioned altruism. It's just it's a really practical mechanism to come in and furnish these empty homes. I suppose we should really go into what we do, too, Marcus.
I was just thinking that because I know we're talking about the issues, but you're about to talk about furnish the empty homes. And just to make it clear, and I know you don't say this, but I'm going to say it because it kind of disgusts me a little bit. Rizeup still pay retail for the furnishings that they're putting into the homes of the women and the children that are being relocated. So when we talk about not being funded, not having the government support, not being front line, that's kind of the impact. Is Rizeup is not getting discounts on all of the stuff. So that's why I think, what do we call it these days? Crowdfunded, seed funded. We just need the community of Australia doing good old Australian things, getting this supported. So yes, it would be great. It would be great if you explain, a kind of like a day in the life of helping someone relocate and what it looks like.
Yeah, sure. So we are the leading service provider that work with the specialist services. So we work with refuges and we work with domestic violence crisis services. So DV Victoria, Dame Ira is down in Victoria, for example. Then there's a myriad of refuges, and it's the same up here. We've got Brisbane domestic violence, all the peak services around the place, okay? And we don't work directly with the families. We'll just get all of that out the way first and give you an understanding of why we don't do that. We don't do that because we're not social workers, okay? So I'm sales and marketing, old mate. I'm not a counsellor or, anything like that. And it's really, we need to swim in our lane, yeah? We need to swim in the lane, and the lane is that we can all come together and really put down our skills, and I can talk. So, and I can talk. So,
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
So, this is the thing, right? So, we need to be really mindful of these really vulnerable families at the front line. I am quite outspoken in this space where, there are amazing people out there that are really well-meaning and, step into the domestic and family violence space because they feel they want to really get involved and help. The biggest and most important thing, and the takeaway for everyone listening, is we need to do this work, but do it really safely, right? Because there are really incredible frontline services who are trained, they are experienced, they know how to safety plan, they do court support, they do all that wraparound stuff, because we need to keep these families safe, right? We're not dealing with cupcakes and party hats. We are dealing with high levels of violence, high levels of lethality. These families are incredibly vulnerable, and we would be doing such a disservice to them if something was to happen to them, right? So this is the thing. We've also need to be really mindful around this trauma behavior, and we don't want to encourage any negative codependent relationships from forming. People are super vulnerable in this space. So we just need to all swim in our lane. My team is always laughing because they'll ask me something and I'll say, is this your lane? Is this your lane? So it's, I think it's really important. So we've got this mechanism that we've created, which is essentially the whole reason why we started was to drive awareness to domestic and family violence. We need people talking about it, right? We need to look at each other in the eye and not to feel uncomfortable. We just need to talk about it. It's definitely not fashionable. It's not fun. It's a bit ick. You feel a bit ick about it. But now, almost 6 years in with Rizeup, we're now reaching about 600,000 people on social media, on Facebook.
That's awesome.
Which is amazing, right? And that's, from a little seed where we've kind of gone, let's get people talking about domestic and family violence. So let's create some vehicles where we've got the homes program. So we need your furniture, you've got a couch, all of those things. These people that we're helping are coming out of refuge after 12 weeks, right, where they've gone in and they've had the support of the refuge and they've gone into hiding essentially. Most of the families that we're supporting go into community housing, okay, government housing, and they go into them with absolutely nothing. Bar, perhaps before us, what the social workers would be able to secure themselves, right? So there might be a mattress or whatever. But now, with the help of Rizeup, which is why it's so super important that we need to become a household name. We need to be in every suburb across Australia. We need to be working super hard, and because what we're doing is we're going in, and within 4 to 5 hours, we're completely transforming this empty, loveless property into something that is beautiful. There's food in the pantry. There is a full kitchen set. There's beds that are made. There's art on the walls. Because we don't meet the families, what we do find out is little things. The teenage girl, she's not into pink, but she certainly loves black. So we'll tailor it to the needs of the family as best that we can. And actually, I just got some feedback through from my homes manager today. Some little cards that were made from 4 children that have just gone into a home, and I've put it onto Instagram. So you'll have to go and check it out, these beautiful little cards that these kids have made. And, so we go in, and then we, pick up the key out of the letterbox. It's all very, and we go in, my team goes in there, the furniture's dropped off, but essentially it's donation driven, right? So if it's not donated to us, we need to buy it. So if we don't have enough food, which we're buying retail price, it's nuts, isn't it? And that's nothing to do with the government. That's actually, we need to partner with corporates. We need Coles and that to come on board and to be donating. And I think, yeah.
Sorry, Damo, did you want to ask that question on behalf of Pete, or should we leave it till after the recording?
I can't hear Damien.
I think we've lost Damo.
Yeah.
Is it just you and me?
Hello?
Damo, you with us?
I can see him. He's talking.
Is he on mute? Damo. Oh. Damo, is he there? No.
Hello? Oh, he's crying now.
All right, I'm going to ask a question because I don't know if everyone else can hear, but this is the question that I want to ask Nicolle. I have one more question. For people right now, particularly those in lockdown but just living isolated lives, if they feel that they are seeing something, hearing something, observing something untoward in their neighbourhood, in their street, in their next door neighbour's house right now, where do they go and what do they do? Because I feel like that's a very, unspoken kind of challenge for people.
Absolutely. Call the police and report it. Keep yourself safe. That's super important, okay? Let's not think, it's just a domestic. Your call might be the call that saves a life. It's super important to get involved. When we're all so traditionally, it's just a domestic. Let's change the language around that, and it is our business, and you're not bothering anybody, and it can be anonymous when you're calling. The other thing to remember is that no matter if there's stage 4 lockdowns, if there's domestic and family violence, you can flee your home, okay? So there is help available, and there are helplines, and there's quick exits on websites and all of those sorts of things. People just need to know that there's lots and lots of support available, heaps of support. That's the one thing that I think is not clearly communicated out to the broader community, is that there are amazing frontline services that do the best work, and this is their specialty. They do it. They're incredible. So we need to just have an awareness of that, drive an awareness that there's lots of help out there. 1-800-RESPECT is the national helpline. So you can ring 24 hours a day. You can speak even if it's for your friend. You can ring, or your family. You can ring and ask advice. Incredible service. So loads.
Can you hear me now?
He's back. Well,
I had a
welcome
Rode.
back.
I think I'm going to have to call Rode podcast microphones. It's time you sent me a new one, because this has done miles and it's just mucking up all the time. Rode podcast microphone. I need a new one, please. Nicolle, there's been some great chat. Like, as we've been talking, there's been people on the Facebook page chatting away. One lady says, having been through the refugee system myself, or the refuge system myself, I could never thank them enough, and would love for more of the general public to have a better understanding of the remarkable jobs this sector does.
Yeah. With
this symbol, thank you. Get on board, peeps. So I want to thank Sam for sending that through. Jody said she'd love to get on board and help you guys, and she has a company that I know can help you guys, which is amazing.
Yes.
And then
Jody.
Peter Lennon, we love Jodes, and Peter Lennon says, Can we get practical? Because last night I bumped into a lady collecting money outside the local shops. As I entered the shop, I realised she was homeless as a result of domestic violence. I work in an adjacent sector, that's mental health, and yet I still didn't know what to do for her, how to make her safe, what to offer, who to refer her to. So maybe if we could just close off just by answering those few questions, that'd be great. Thanks, Nicolle.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks for the question. So I think that's really incredible, and how nice to be able to lean in. I think the next step that you would do is find out what it is that she wants to do. Yeah, find out what she wants to do. What is super important in this space is that we must never replicate the power and control of a perpetrator. And I hear this a lot, with friends and school mums and whatnot. And it's around, I can't take it anymore. They keep telling me what's going on, and I don't want to know anymore. What we're doing there, we're buying right into the game of the perpetrator, aren't we? Because we're further isolating. The minute that we stop wanting to know and we're stepping out of that space, we're actually going, yep, no worries, you're being isolated, I'm out, okay? So what we need to do is make a commitment to walking alongside these really vulnerable people and finding out what it is and what do they want to do at that point. What is their circumstances? Are they aware that there's 1-800-RESPECT? Are they aware that there's the peak services, which is there's one sort of peak service in every major city, but there's incredible support services. So 1-800-RESPECT is the best. And I suppose in that situation, if the woman was open to that, then perhaps if he had a phone, maybe he could have asked if she wanted to ring 1-800-RESPECT. That's the other thing, and they can link her then, through to a refuge or through to a motel. Just up here in Queensland, we've got the highest number of women sitting in motels that there's ever been before. I think we're at 78 women currently in motels waiting to go into refuge. So it is a massive problem in this beautiful country, and we know that a lot of people are going back to violent homes because of lack of resources. So what Rise Up is doing is we're going in and we're providing a really practical support mechanism. We are saying we support you, we understand this is a really tough time for you, but have a sit down, have a cup of tea and breathe at the dining table with your kids, and start that journey of recovery. We're creating an anchor for them in their new beautiful spaces. So if everyone could jump on the Facebook page, on Rise Up and on Instagram and have a look, follow us, share it amongst your friends and family.
Share this podcast.
Yep. Share the podcast.
Share the Facebook Live. Now, you've got some fans here too, Nicolle. Tanya Birdsey and Debbie Kennedy. They are just talking you up here. So a little shout out to them, and so thank you for joining us. I'll let you close it off, Marcus Pearce.
Yeah, I think Rise Up for everyone watching and listening is spelt with a Z, so RIZE up.com.au. Rise Up Australia on socials, as Nicolle said, massive reach on Facebook. I love the Instagram page personally, not on Facebook that much these days. I love how the families are numbered. You mentioned the card that the children made. I was having a peek at that. Just support Rise Up however you can. If it's $2 a week, maybe it's 5 women and families you want to do $10 a week, but go to riseup.com.au. Seriously, I don't want to be too hyper optimistic, but let's bloody end domestic violence, at least in the lucky country. How can we call ourselves a lucky country with disgusting stats like that? So let's all put in 2 bob and get this country of ours going a whole lot better. Pandemic or not, we can at least help by supporting Nicolle and the Rise Up community and the hundreds of thousands, sadly millions of people in this country that are impacted by domestic violence. So Nicolle, from Damien and I and all of our listeners and viewers, we love you. We are so grateful to have people like you. We are thankful to your mum and dad that came over to Australia.
Absolutely.
Because without them knowing it, they were planting the seed of an incredible mission that you are on by bringing you over here, and we are so grateful to have your support in our country. And thank you to you and what you do at Rise Up Australia. And as always, thanks for joining us on 100 Not Out.
Amazing. Thank you.
No worries. Now, don't go anywhere, Nicolle. We're going to wrap up this episode and we might hang on a little bit for our Facebook viewers. To all of the listeners and viewers of 100 Not Out, thank you for your support of the podcast. You can catch up with this podcast and many more by going to thewellnesscouch.com, the Facebook page 100 Not Out, spell it all out, and on Instagram at 100.notout. Make sure you check up Nicolle and the Rizeup community over at rizeup.com.au. And until next time, as always, continue to make the rest of your life the best of your life. Bye for now.
Bye for now.
That's so good.
All right. Now we're still live for all of our Facebook friends and viewers.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Christelle Buxton also said that she's a fan as well. And so I thought I better mention that too. Good on you, Christelle.
I'm a fan of this crazy person.
Now Damo just wants to make sure he says everyone so that no one feels left out, because that's Damo.
I've done that. Yeah. I've been answering and speaking to them all, Marcus Pearce.
I just couldn't concentrate. I couldn't keep up with the comments and the questions and the audio. I was like,
I couldn't believe that my mic crapped itself again. Well, I can believe it. Because it's clearly a Rode podcast mic, Rode. It's time to fix it for me. Yeah.
Fancy, though.
Not anymore. I've had enough. Of it. Yeah.
You know, Marcus, this is the biggest thing, right? And you were talking about the pandemic, and we have had the biggest amount of volunteers join Rizeup than ever before during the pandemic, especially from Melbourne. I think we've got massive amount of people in Melbourne who have signed up. So it's incredible. And I think, everyone's in lockdown, but there's something where that's that good old Aussie spirit, isn't it? Where we can go, we're all struggling, but there are people way more worse off than ourselves. And what can we do? So, in that landscape of this great, beautiful ocean of incredible men that we are surrounded with, what's super important to know, though, is it's actually the drop in the ocean that are using this violence. So the most important thing is I would like to see way more men join Rizeup, because we are the men's and women's voices against violence, right? It's a heavily gendered situation, and it's definitely not to negate or minimize or anything like that. It's just because of these drivers to violence. We're talking about, gender inequality and the sexual objectification of women and all of those things. But, we need the men to be leaning in and chatting to men. Men's voices need to be heard. So, that's where we will see systemic change, Marcus.
Sorry, I dropped out, but I don't know if I got my question out. I wanted to honour Damo for owning the casual racism of a few years ago or whenever it was. And because you made it so real life for listeners and viewers that it does happen almost in the womb, and the culture of the family that we grow up in and the remarks that we hear and what gets marked as permissible and not. And I think it was a beautiful example. A beautiful is probably not the right word. It was a very apt.
He's gone. Well, I'll thank you for bringing that up, PC. But it's very real. It's very true. And I think that this is where it kind of permeates society, is that it's made acceptable because it's turned into a joke. So I'm just joking, I'm just kidding about it. But it's never actually okay. And then you see all of those TV commercials that show you the result of that and what actually happens in the family. It started at some point just from joking about it, and then
I'm done. My internet's falling apart, guys.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It is.
But I think it's also that what we all...
Am I still in here?
It's that pleasing thing, isn't it? Where,
I'm done.
Even if you're... oh, shame. Can you hear us? No. Oh. even if we don't feel that comfortable, and if someone was to say something, we would still kind of give it a giggle, because people feel if you feel really uncomfortable not to because we're all kind of pleasers, aren't we? We don't want the person to feel uncomfortable, so you do kind of give it a laugh. So we do have to lean in and just be able to go, and do it really respectfully. Know your audience and just challenge the status quo by knowing who your audience is as well. There's no point getting out there and being really aggro and disrespectful, because you're just going to lose your lose your audience and lose the opportunity to impact the broader message.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Just pacing it and just going, calmly. You don't need, and I think what you said before was you don't want to take over the space of the perpetrator by taking control of the situation. I think, going in there and asking, what would you like to do? Do you want to continue doing what you're doing, or would you like me to help you out? I think that's a really nice way to go about it. It was good.
Like it's more empowering, isn't it?
Yeah, right. You're giving them a little bit of, or at least an opportunity to step into their own life and take control. Yeah, it's great.
Absolutely.
Marcus Pearce is back.
Are we still live?
Yeah. We're still live.
I've got Peter Lennon going, you're still live. I'm like, yeah, no, that's all right, Pete. We're still live. My internet's dying, so I'll just keep coming in and out as it has little heart murmurs. Yeah, so anyway, I think I said it, Damo. I loved what you did earlier. So, courage.
Did come through.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're most welcome. Nicolle, I think off the back of this, there'll be a lot of people that want to, contribute in some way. So we'll put obviously up on our Facebook page. This will go to YouTube as well, this video. So it's not going to get lost in Facebook. It'll go into YouTube. And if there's anything that's relevant in there, then share it, to your audience too, because I think it was a great interview. And everybody else who watched it, and there was heaps of people that watched it.
Good. Yeah.
So Tanya's asked a question: how long is this podcast going to stay on for? Well, we're going to close off pretty soon, actually.
No, we're going to talk here forever.
But we are going to finish up.
But
the podcast will be live probably Monday. Will it? Piercy?
Monday, yeah. We'll release this one Monday.
So the actual podcast itself will be live on Monday. I'll try and get this video up onto YouTube this afternoon, and so it'll be everywhere. So
we'll go viral in no time, Nicolle. Don't you worry about that.
That's the way. No pressure. Yeah. Yes. Thanks so much to you both. Amazing. I really appreciate your support, and we'll get there. The more that we're spreading the word and changing lives, there's heaps of ways that people can help, and just if you can help one person, hey, that's it. That's where it starts, and
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Nicolle. It was so great to meet you, and thanks, Marcus, for bringing Nicolle on. I think Marcus is frozen again. It must be really cold in Byron Bay, anyway, it was unreal having you, and so thank you very much, and thanks everyone to the audience for joining us live today. You don't often get an opportunity to meet a champion like you, Nicolle, so it's really great to have you to join us and share your story. So thank you very much.
Okay, that's great. Lovely.
All right. Take care. We'll be in touch.
See ya. Bye.